Hello, hello. Welcome back to Two Dumbbell Blondes. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Katie.
And before we get started, whatever platform you're listening on, be sure to give us a follow and 5-star rating. And if you happen to be watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and like. On today's episode, we have Liz Sousek joining us. And I know her as the bar queen, but Katie knows her and has known her a little bit longer than I will have. So I'll hand it off to you, Katie, to give the introduction for Liz.
Well, you know her as the bar queen. I know her as the high kick queen. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can't see Liz's legs like you should, but they're amazing. And so I'm going to toss it over to Liz to really give a more in-depth explanation of her background. But Liz has a huge, extensive background in dance and the fitness world. She was a Rockette for 13 years, every girl's dream or many girls' dreams. And she just has a really interesting story. So Liz, we are so excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am a huge fan. I've listened to every episode probably multiple times. I just finished up your Running Man episode, and I think I might want to come with you guys next time. So,
oh yeah,
you're in.
And I'm even worse than Katie when it comes to running, but it sounds like a lot of fun. Well, thank you so much for having me. I have quite the story, and I'm excited to chat with you ladies about, and anybody who's listening, about what it's like to really just kind of go for your dream and not really look back. And I guess you just start with how I got started, right?
Yeah. Start with way back when.
Way back when. Well, I am in Minnesota.
Don't age her, Katie.
She's 21.
Yes.
Yes. I am a Minnesota native. I grew up in Lakeville, and I just was always an active kid. And I was lucky enough to come before health and wellness was like this huge industry. My family just was always kind of naturally healthy. It's like, just move your body, eat whole foods. We had I remember we would have tortillas in our chips in our house, and they would only come out if we had guests over, But at the same time, we would get McDonald's maybe, once every other week after soccer practice. So really happy that I had a family that just instilled just good basic health, eating, sleeping, moving my body. My parents put me in all the sports as a kid, just for fun, right? We were super active. So swimming, soccer, tennis, golf I was not good at. Dance.
Who is good at golf?
Yeah. Not good at golf. I was like, that was a waste of money, Mom and Dad. Gymnastics. I really wanted to be a gymnast. And my mom just looked at me when I was 7, and she goes, I think you're already too tall, honey.
Liz, how tall are you?
What?
How tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
Okay.
Yeah. But even at 7 or 8, I was already very tall. But the thing that hooked me on dance, and this is before YouTube, again, I'm aging myself, before YouTube, before you could just watch any dance anywhere all the time, was they'd have these PBS specials of the Nutcracker, and I would watch the two greats, and this is from the 70s, so it predates even when I was born, Mikhail Baryshnikov and Gelsey Kirkland, and I would watch them. We recorded on a VHS tape, and I would probably watch it religiously from December when it aired till February. So I was in my dance classes, and I was I think that's what I want to do. I wanted to be a ballerina. I wanted to be like her. And I remember I looked up to my mom, still do. And I remember her saying, if you become a dancer, that's one of the highest levels of athletes you can be. So I remember thinking if I become a dancer, that's going to be one of the most amazing feats type thing. Then fast forward, I'll go back again, but there was a study, it was done in, I want to say the late 90s, early aughts, that they had studied every aspect of 100 sports. And I'm sorry, I can't quote it. Physical, mental, emotional, and football came out as number 1, which I just watched quarterback and receiver. And I agree, those guys get hit hard and knocked down hard and have to be really smart and really fast and really strong. But dance came in as number 2. And I remember thinking, I think I was a teenager at the time, wow, this is really cool. I'm doing one of the hardest, most physically, mentally, and emotionally challenging sports, if you want to call it a sport or an art out there. So I just kind of fell in love with both the art and the physicality of it. I didn't do dance through high school, but I had a lot of high school friends, but then they would come and see my shows. I did more what's called concert dance. So traditional ballet training, classical jazz training, a little bit of tap in there, which I'm glad I did because it came in handy later when I became a Rockette. But I was one of those, straight A kids that I'd go to school from like 8 a.m. to, want to say it was like 1-ish. I got credit for all of my phys ed and my arts, extracurriculars that I had to do to pass high school. And then I would go take a bus downtown. This is before the light rail was here in Minneapolis, and go dance for like 3 or 4 hours with at Ballet Arts Minnesota. So that's what
Wow.
I did throughout high school. So a lot of sacrifices, even when I was younger. It was like, hey, mom and dad, I'm going to just go ahead and pass on this whole high school experience. I don't care about prom. I don't care about going to football games. I want to do this. So I'm so grateful that they supported that within reason, right? I had to get good grades and I had to make sure all my T's were crossed and my I's were dotted. But I think they were thrilled because it kept me away from like,
Trouble.
trouble, right. Like
Typical
drinking
high school trouble.
and
Yeah.
boys, all that good stuff.
Wow.
So yeah.
What an incredible decision you made at such a young age. You're absolutely right. During that stage of life, I have two kids that are in it or about to enter it. And, really choosing to follow your dreams and do something that is very different than what most teenagers are choosing to do. So
Yeah.
I bet you had to make some big decisions and felt like you were sacrificing a lot.
So when you said, it was really watching the Nutcracker that kind of steered your direction towards, I want to be a dancer. Like, what did you think was the end goal to get into the Nutcracker? Like, when you watched that, like, what did you want to work towards? Because you just said all the time and energy and focus that you gave to it, but what did you have in mind to work towards with that?
Great question. I was kind of one of those people that really just knew that if I just gave my all, like I'd find my right seat on the bus. So we did have Nutcracker productions in the Twin Cities growing up. So I got to experience that not at a professional level, but at a pre-professional level where they bring in principal dancers from companies around the world. So you got to kind of dance alongside them. You weren't in those big soloist roles. So it's really kind of cool how that happened. So it's kind of like within arm's reach. It wasn't until I was maybe at the same time simultaneously, so 14 to like 17, 18, I got the opportunity to audition and attend these big dance schools in New York. And I was lucky because we have family in New York. So I can't say that I would have the same opportunity if we didn't have that family, because my parents weren't comfortable with me going to New York City as a 14-year-old all summer on my own, the big scary city when you aren't super familiar with it. So I, would go study at those companies. And I want to say, to answer your question specifically, Lindsay, when I was about 15 or 16, I knew that I had to get as much ballet training under my belt as possible, but I kind of figured like being a ballerina wasn't my trajectory because I was, again, very tall, too tall to be a gymnast, too tall, much tall. There are some very tall, long-limbed, muscular ballerinas out there, but for traditional ballet company, you've got those guys lifting those girls, throwing them all around. They're about 5'5", 5'6", and maybe weigh 102 pounds. So I knew that, like, again, I was the leanest I was ever going to be, but I'm tall and I'm long legged. So I was like, oh, maybe more of like a Fosse jazz thing is something more that I would benefit from. So I didn't really have an end game. I just knew that if I put myself in front of the right people at the right time and place and just took class and took class and took class and took class, I would find a way to dance professionally. And I had people kind of helping me along the way.
So then what did you do after high school? I think this is a good transition into what did you choose to do?
Yeah, I still wanted to go the traditional college route. I just didn't want to be like a starving dancer artist waiting tables until their big break. So like I said, I was a nerd and I got good grades in high school. So I was lucky enough to come of age when, you didn't have to choose between being a starving artist dancer and going to college. You could pick more of a liberal arts or conservatory school situation. So I knew I wanted to be in New York City. I wanted to get into Juilliard so bad. I thought I was going to. I had attended their summer program the year prior, and they just seemed to really love me, and they gave me a huge solo, and they like, it's like that boy that like props you up and then ghosts you. And I didn't get in. And I remember being so heartbroken, but it ended up being, again, I just kind of trusted the universe, and I ended up going to another equally amazing school called Marymount Manhattan College, more liberal arts. So I could focus also on, more academic studies in case I just kind of decided junior, senior year, hey, I don't want to dance. That way I don't have all my eggs in one conservatory basket. They have a fantastic, still to this day, I think it's even probably better than it was when I went there, theater and dance program. So I went there, I did the traditional college, although it was more of a conservatory, a liberal arts situation. We didn't have like the football games or the quad or anything like that. Everybody was very focused on dancing, acting. I think we had a really great communications program. But it was the right place for me because then I also could go take class at Broadway Dance Center and Steps, or even American Ballet Theater. They have open company classes just to kind of get that exposure and learn the next skill, which is auditioning. So another thing I wanted to talk about is dancers have really thick skin because we receive rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection when you want to make it. So that's something you also have to learn, and you learn by putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. So just like an athlete or a weightlifter, you want to create that stressful, tense situation. So then you grow and you become stronger. Progressive overload, I think is the word for it, right? You kind of have to do that mentally as a dancer. So that's another reason why when that study came out probably in the 90s, and I'm sure it's been tweaked and altered, it's like, wow, you have to have that really strong, resilient mindset, which I have to admit, I struggle today when I give constructive feedback to my team at where I work. And it's like, ooh, they're not used to this blunt feedback all the time. Katie knows her daughter's going through it.
It's so true. It is so true. So was your degree in dance performance or what was your degree? Okay.
Yep. It was dance performance. What was it? BFA in dance performance. And then I really kind of fell in love. I'm half Lebanese. I fell in love with international relations and like kind of all those like studies that my college offered. So I minored in international studies as well. So I got to kind of do a little bit of both. Yeah.
So you brought up Juilliard. I have a very important question to ask you.
Yeah.
How realistic is Save the Last Dance?
All of our listeners are wanting to know the same thing.
God, I haven't seen that movie in so long. Good question.
Would she actually get in? Would she actually get in?
I don't know. I will say Juilliard they do take it's more on the male side, I want to say. Again, and this is 25 years ago, right? Or 20 years ago. It's more on the male side. They would kind of take a chance on a more untrained dancer, I would say, that had like kind of that raw talent that they would maybe try and harness. But yeah, I'm not sure. I know the person who played the body double for her. Chrissy Whitehead. I don't know her personally, but we were in the audition scene at the same time. So that dancer made it. I don't know if she went to Juilliard, but
very cool.
Yeah.
So Liz, I want to get to the next step in your life, but what's the most uncomfortable style of dance for you?
Oh, well, probably hip hop.
Okay.
Hip hop's, again, kind of going back to Lindsay's question, it is definitely have that ballet, like almost every other style, you got to have that ballet underlining, even if you're not doing ballet, but hip hop, you don't. And sometimes ballet can be a hindrance for that because there's a lot of these memes on Instagram, like ballet dancers taking hip hop. And I'm sure your daughter's seen them, Katie.
Yeah. Well, it just reminds me, Liz and I also work together at my tumbling studio. I teach tumbling and I'm going to teach Liz tumbling now that I know she wants to be a gymnast, and Liz teaches dance. But it's funny, the dancers who lean more towards that ballet, it's all about control. And I feel like when you are a hip hop dancer, it's a little bit less control, and you can see it. Like you can see the individuals who are just so trained and so poised. And that is absolutely how I would describe you just as a human. You're just, your poise is I am envious of your poise.
Oh, thank you.
It's kind of funny though, because anyone just listening, not watching, Liz has these beautiful curls and her hair is like hip hop hair. Like it's like
It
fun
is.
hip
I
hop
know.
hair.
I've got the look. And I can coach hip hop. Like I know how to like tell them to like I can coach it. It's just like I'm like, don't ask me to demo it. I've got my limbs are too long. It's but
Yeah.
I'm more hip hoppy probably now than I've ever been because of I've now kind of transitioned over to more fitness style of movement. So I still have my own like take on it though.
Yes. So Katie kind of alluded to this, and I know she kicked it off with this, but I think a huge accomplishment is the Radio City Rockette for 13
Yeah.
years. So tell us about how that transitioned from you were in school. I'm assuming it was soon after school that you became a
Yeah.
Rockette. Like, what did that journey look like?
Yeah, it actually was after my junior year of college. And I had a really rough semester. I heartbroken. I didn't get a couple parts that I thought I was going to get. I had a ballet master that was really tough on me. And I honestly, and that's why I was so glad I had, and that's when I kind of grabbed that international relations minor because I was going to quit. I was going to maybe finish the degree just to, get the degree, but then I don't want to do this anymore. I happened to audition for the Rockettes. I saw that there was an audition in May, and my college, and I agree with this, even though I broke the rule, is like, they're like, we don't want you to come here and use this as a stepping stone and just audition, and then leave. And then you've only half finished your degree because you're not going to really come back and finish it at a certain point. So I auditioned for them just thinking like, let me just see what this feels like. I mean, I had taken a lot of Rockette style classes, so I kind of had an idea. I got to know and meet some of the girls that had been Rockettes, so I knew it was within reach, but I didn't think I would get it first time out of the gate. Um, and then I made it through the first cut, and then I made it through the second cut. And for those that don't know, and for you too, so Radio City, it's really cool. At least at the time, I think it may have changed, but they do have an open audition, which anybody can come in and audition. You don't have to pay a fee. You didn't have to pre-register. You just show up in nude tights and a leotard and with your hair up and makeup and high heels, and you just show up. And I thought that that was really cool that they did that because any girl could come and say, hey, I got to stand on that stage and audition for the Radio City Rockettes, right?
That is very
Whether they
cool.
got cut right away or not. I think it is different now. I think there's more invitational, and there's more pre-registration, but that was really cool. And I did have a little bit of an advantage in the sense that like my college, they knew that anybody coming in from Marymount, they would make sure that they had a place for us. But nobody, I mean, I auditioned blind. The director had never seen me before. But just having that, like, oh, we have some girls coming from Marymount, and making sure that they got us in, we got to be seen. But they do a quick little like fast cut combination where it's like, okay, we need to see you do a double pirouette and 8 eye high kicks, and they can very quickly decipher who they're gonna keep and dance more. So they have, I think, maybe 1,000 girls audition a year ish, or at the time that was the case. They'll quickly cut it down to about 50, a group of 50, and they'll dance that group of 50 for the rest of the day. So just a series of combinations and cuts, and a combination is probably about 30 seconds worth of dancing. So jazz, tap, and they'll always do like a more balletic one because they can't really want to test your technique. Then at the end of the day, they'll make another cut, and they'll probably be about 20-ish the next day. And they usually don't cut after the next day. They just say, we'll call you. And the thing about, and this is like pretty much any Broadway show, you could go in for them 20 times and they could just be, you could know everybody's name, you could know their kids, and like they just don't call you if they don't have a job for you. They don't call you and give you feedback and say, here's why we didn't take you. It's just until they see, you either get a call that you got the job, or again, until you show up to audition the next year.
You're talking about having tough skin. I think that's even harder. Like I would much rather, as hard as feedback can be to hear, at least you can take it and do something with it. If you just don't get a call, you're like, the thoughts just start to swirl. You're like, was it this? Was it that? Like, oh my gosh, what can I do different? So I think that's even harder than giving feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and like, not only did you move to New York and go through all of these auditions and hear all of this rejection and develop this thick skin, but at a very young age, you moved across the country to New York City. Like that's
Yeah.
not just like I went to Madison. Madison and New York are very, very different. And
Yeah.
so like what challenges did you ever think about moving home? Or was it because you were used to going out there from age
Yeah.
14? You were just used to it? Because that's also like I don't want to pass over that because that's
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah. It was so fortunate that I had family out there. So that was huge. And pretty close family. So they always were my safety net. The first 3 years as a teenager, I did live with them. And I think I drove them nuts. Um, Even though I was a really good kid, but it's a lot having a teenager when you don't have kids. And then I had the safety net of college. So I do recommend like anybody, whether it's someone themselves or if they have a kid, it's great to throw them out into whether it's New York or another big city with that kind of safety net of college or school or any sort of school, because then they have friends around them that are kind of have a common interest. So it wasn't like, I mean, and I do know some girls that like, they literally came at 18 and their parents set them up in an apartment and they just went for it. And some of them made it. I know I couldn't have done that. I needed more structure and more
Support.
familiar faces and
Yeah.
support. So,
So
yeah,
this,
but no, it was really great. I was really happy that I had the support of my parents to do that.
so this is coming from the person on the podcast that doesn't know as much about dance. If someone's listening to this, when you become a Rockette, what does that commitment look like? Like, what are you signing up for by
Yeah.
becoming a Rockette?
This is a great question, and I can transition a little bit more into the fitness side of things with this. It kind of runs almost like a football season or a professional sports season. So you get a contract for a year. As many of you who know the Rockettes, you know that like Christmas is our Super Bowl season, right? Or our in season. I guess that matches up with football. We start rehearsals. I mean, I always kind of get like a little knot in my tummy this time of year. I'm not going to lie. It's like the last week of September. It's like going back to school. So we rehearse for 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, starting late, end of September-ish. And they have a beautiful sound stage that's built into the basement of a church, actually, in New York City. It's kind of cool. And they rehearse a lot of other, whenever they put a Broadway production up on TV, like around Christmas time or Thanksgiving, they rehearse in that space, which is neat to see. 6 hours a day, 6 days a week. Then from there, we transition to Radio City Music Hall itself. And we do 2 weeks there, and it's called tech rehearsals. So they're long, 10 out of 12 days. So 10 hours.
Wow.
They are allowed to rehearse us 10 hours out of 12 hours. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not like the hardcore drilling dance. A lot of it's sitting, standing, getting lighting, teching the numbers, which can be grueling on your body. And God, I'm glad I'm not doing it now because my body could handle the movement now, but I could not handle that part of it. Standing around, we wear these starch white pants for the Parade of the Wind Soldiers number and these tall hats. And sometimes you just have to stand in the light for a half hour so they can correctly light us. Sometimes they have to make sure that they have to measure the hem of our pants to make sure that, even if I'm 5'10" and the girl on the end of the line is 5'6", that the hems of our pants match up. That's why we all look the exact same. It's an optical illusion. So that type of grueling, like 2-week tech rehearsal. Yeah. That's where you get injured because you're not dancing and running numbers every day. You've stopped, you're running numbers here and there, but you've stopped and starting so much and standing around. Then the end of those 2 weeks, like, okay, now we're running it. Now we're running it. Now we're running it. And that's when girls tend to get injured. The cool thing about the Rockettes that I'll compare again to professional sports is we have athletic trainers. And we have the facilities that the New York Knicks and the Rangers and the Liberty use. We have the same specialists and athletic trainers. And they built like those hot tubs and those cold plunges, and then brought in all the machinery. Is that the word? I don't know. All the stuff.
All the stuff.
Yeah. And it was cool to see. I was a Rockette from 2005 to 2018 to see it evolve. When I first started, it was like, okay, your calf is strained, do this stretch. It was like a stretch I already knew. And then it turned into like, let's go. We got to get you taped up. We got to get you, our athletic trainer. She was a former Rockette. She said, every Rockette is a quarterback, and I need every quarterback to be in the game. So that was really cool. So with that, and this is kind of where I'll transition into fitness. Okay, so, I got to go back. So then we open the show. So we run the numbers. You got to be careful you don't get injured. Then we open the show, and then you're just spat out in front of the audience. And we start out with about 2 shows a day.
So wait, let me
Which
ask you: is there like an A team and a B team? Because if there are people waiting in the wings to like your
great,
understudies?
yes. Oh, there's so much. There's so much I have to tell you, ladies.
This is
Yes.
so fascinating, so fascinating.
Yes.
Because you're right, you are performing at the highest level every single day. I mean, it is like a professional sport.
Yeah. The only
Okay.
difference is we know how our game's going to play out more than like a football player, I think, would. But yeah, so we have 2 companies. Typically, a Broadway show is it's just the company, right? Whether it's a dancing show or a play or singing or something in between or a little bit of everything. You have the main company, and then you have swings. So swings would cover the ensemble. They would jump in. They know, like, if there's 6 women in a Broadway show, they would know every woman's part, and they would be able to jump in and dance and sing that part. They are no means like a backup, like, hey, you're not good enough to be in the main cast. It's more like, you've done this before. And you're versatile, and you can sing all these different parts and dance all these different parts. So we're going to throw you in. So that's how Broadway runs. Rockettes, because the typical Broadway show runs about 8, 9-ish, 10-ish shows a week. And from Thanksgiving to New Year's, we do about anywhere between individual casts. It's between 12 and 18 shows a week, 17 shows, I think, a week.
Oof,
so that's just
wow.
like, I can't do math right now, but it's like quadruple the number. So we have 2 companies. We call it not red. We call it blue and gold. I've been a part of both. There's not one that's superior to the other. The blue company typically would dance in the morning, and do like and yes, we have 9 a.m. shows. They do like the 9 a.m., the 11 a.m., the 1 p.m.s, maybe bleed into the 4 p.m.s. And the gold company would come in. They do like the 2 p.m.s, 4 p.m.s. There's a little bit of overlap, of course. And as late as 10 p.m. And I had the privilege of being in both companies. I was 5 years in the blue company and 5 years in the gold company. Gold company is like, you want to go out and you want to party after you're like in your mid 20s. And then blue company is like, I wasn't a mom when I was a Rockette, but you're like, hey, I got to get in, I got to get out, I got to get home and take care of my kids. So, so we did have 2 companies, and then within those companies, we had our swings, kind of what I described with the Broadway show. So again, these girls aren't backups. Many of them had been Rockettes in the line for many years, and they have the privilege and the opportunity of stepping out and making sure each swing, there's 4 swings per line, 36 women in a line, 4 swings. So each swing covers about 8 women. So having to know 8 little intricate parts of a 90-minute show. When we're on stage, I'd say 75% of the time.
That's incredible.
Crazy. Yeah.
So then you were saying that with this, because it's like a football season, is that when you got into fitness?
Yeah. So because the show got to be more and more physically grueling, just with the choreography and just all the bells and whistles. We do a number called Here Comes Santa Claus, where all the Rockettes and the ensemble are dressed as Santa, and there's like 35-pound suits that we wear. And we've got these heavy bells, and we're ringing them, and we're laying back, and we're doing these attitude kicks. So imagine that these are my hands or my feet. You're laying back and you're going across the doing that. So you have to be so physically strong. So my fitness journey started back in college, and it's funny, you guys are going to laugh. It was like, I was at a liberal arts college, and there was just like no straight boys. I'm like, well, how am I going to meet straight boys? So I joined the gym like on our city block. So that's kind of like, I was like, well, how am I going to meet people? Like, I mean, I said to myself, oh, I'll start dating in college. And then college came, and it's all like just girls and gays and meeting people. And I was like, oh, I guess I do
before there were dating apps. You had to join to find straight guys. Yeah.
So, and I don't even think I even met anybody at the gym, but I'm happy I joined, and I did enjoy. Even in college, I knew that I needed that kind of cross training, core strength, because I was so long and kind of noodly for a while. And then I just loved the way my arms looked in dance class when I would lift. And I didn't even know what I was doing half the time. But then later on, so fast forward again, as a Rockette, I discovered bar as a form of fitness. And I was like, my Rockette game from I want to say I took my first like traditional bar class, which is very different than like ballet bar that you do in dance. I want to say that I took it after like my 4th year as a Rockette, and my game and my fitness level from, uh, I want to say that was like 2008 to 2009. It was night and day. So I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to just take, or I shouldn't just take class to stay in shape, dance class to stay in shape between my seasons. I got to start cross training. And then our athletic trainers, as that program became more sophisticated, we got a gym inside Radio City Music Hall. They were giving us programs, all optional. They can't force you to do anything in the off season, but that really kind of spearheaded my fitness journey. Then because I loved bar so much and because it transformed my Rockette game so much, after taking it for like 2 years in the off season, I was like, well, I can teach this. So that's kind of how I started that kind of side career. And I kind of knew, even though I still had like seven years left as a Rockette, that I was like, I'm going to go into fitness. I'm going to go into fitness training when and if I retire, and whenever that happens, because you don't always know. It's, we only have 1-year contracts, and you could have a great year and not get asked back, or it's, you're always on your toes.
Every year.
We do re-audition every year. Yep.
So did you say you were a Rockette until 2018?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you said? Okay. So 2018, you had already been coaching bar, like when you were in your football season. So, and I had said, I know you as the bar queen, right?
Yeah.
So take us through 2018 of no longer going to be a Rockette, move back to Minnesota. What does that transition look like?
Yeah, sometimes the universe has to make a decision for you when it comes to that. And I had worked for Equinox out in New York, and I had already gotten into more of a leadership position. And again, I knew that Rockettes was going to end for me pretty soon. You just get and this is just me. Some people continue long beyond, their 30s. But for me, I was like, I just felt my husband, always super supportive of my dance career. We were just kind of getting tired of New York, tired of the grind. I think I've told Katie this, like, you either have to like have nothing to live in New York, or you have to be like Kim Kardashian wealthy. There's like no middle class, right? You're still schlepping it. And people do live that way and they love it. But like, I want to have my car and I want to be able to park it. I want to be able to, I started to get the bug like, oh, maybe I do want to have a kid. I don't think I want to have a kid here. So it was the end of my 13th season, and I thought I had a pretty good season. And I was like, oh, I'm probably going to get an offer, and then this is going to keep me here for another 3 years, because I hate turning down, offers like for the Rockettes. And I didn't. After my 13th year, it's like when you don't get that call, I didn't get an offer. And I could have, auditioned again and done that. But I was like, this is kind of the universe, or it might be them telling me like, hey, you're still great, but it's time to move on. Right. And so the little bug I had, like, I think I do want to slow down. I don't think I want to continue. I don't think I want to continue to pound the pavement, as we say in New York. And then my husband had mentioned Minnesota. He's like, well, why don't we go back to Minnesota? He had spent some time in the Midwest. He's not from Minnesota, but he really liked the vibes there. So we had already been looking at houses before I didn't get my offer. So
it really was
just the universe, just like it was really meant to be. Yeah, it was really meant. And it wasn't even dramatic. It wasn't even like, oh, you had a bad season, we're not giving your job back. It was just like, oh, this is just one of the years I didn't get the offer. And that's a sign. Like, I shouldn't go back and fight for my job. I should just let it go. Type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Start a new chapter of life.
Start a new chapter. Yeah. And Minneapolis is home to Lifetime, which I know you've talked about a little bit. And I was like super excited to see like where I could find my place here. And I had no idea. Like, I had no idea, do they have strong bar programs? What's the Minnesota fitness industry like? And I was pleasantly surprised that it was every bit, if not more sophisticated than what New York has going on. So yeah, just kind of fit right in, found my place. Yeah. And, found my place at a club that, was kind of, I think in Minneapolis is kind of like one of the most kind of eclectic urban clubs, which is a very good fit for me. And just kind of continued and Haven't looked back, honestly. I mean, I do look back because I go to New York like 3 or 4 times a week and visit a year and visit my friends and my family. But I don't look back in the fact that like I still wish I had lived there. And I love looking and seeing the Rockettes and the girls, every Christmas season on TV. I think another thing that helped is I was kind of the last of my friend group to do the job. So that was kind of also like I was kind of the last one standing of my, I guess, generation, which again, there were still girls that had done it longer than me and that were older than me that were still on the line. But my like core people had already moved on. So I was like, okay, it's time. And I was lucky because my body didn't decide for me. My body was like, we can still do another season. But just emotionally and mentally, I think myself and my directors, we just kind of, without even talking about it, because again, you don't really get feedback, that it's just time to move on.
It was just time. So then you moved back and you had a beautiful baby boy.
Yeah. I moved back and beautiful baby boy. And I think I attribute Bar to helping me get through that pregnancy. He's dancing now, just for fun. I'm not sure how good he is at it because I'm not sure about his rhythm yet, but he loves it.
He's got time.
He's got a lot of time. And he's an absolute blast. And and having children, I guess we could consider it later. I had no idea that I was as late as I was because all the girls having babies that were on the Rockette line were like past 35, even up to 45. So for me, I was like, oh, it's time. I'm like, am I a teen mom? I don't know. I don't know if I'm old enough. And I was like 37 and they were like doing all the extra tests on me to make sure that and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm a teen mom. I don't know about you.
You're like, I got this.
Yeah. You're like 16 and pregnant over here.
Yeah. I'm like 16 and pregnant, you guys. What are you saying?
And you said, your body kept up, which is amazing because I don't think everyone can say that. But even now, you coach dance, you coach bar, you coach different formats, and you're doing a lot of those things that you're coaching. It's not like, let me do 2 reps and stand back and watch you. Like you're doing the entire thing with them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. I picked the hardest formats to coach. I noticed as I've gotten older, I can still do everything I did when I was in my teens and 20s. But I need to be, and I think you girls have spoken about this, I need to be less is more sometimes. I can't, I remember when I was in my 20s, I would go to the gym, and then I would go for a run, and then a bad run. And then I would take 2 dance classes, and then I would run home, and then I'd be like, I don't know if I moved enough today. And it's like, I wasn't in any better shape or any stronger than like when I consciously say, I'm going to go coach that bar class. I'm going to be careful not to move too much. And then I'm going to go take GTX. Right. And then make sure that that's my workout for the day. And I'm going to go for a walk with my son. It's like high activity, but less is more, I think, as we get older, and then focusing more on recovery as we're older. For me, it's like, as long as I get my sleep, everything else falls into place.
Nice.
So true.
Yeah.
Well, and we talked a lot about bar, and I'm going to toot Liz's horn really quick. Liz teaches this bar class. So if you're in the Twin Cities, it's at the Lifetime in St. Louis Park, and it's Saturday mornings at 9:30. And how Lindsay knows her and how I know her is that sometimes you think like bar, like, oh, who takes bar class? Is bar going to be hard enough for me? And Liz has created this culture in her class, and she has a group of young 20-something guys, really buff, attractive men that will not miss her class. They're like, you gotta do bar. So her class, I mean, it is young girls, it is older population. Then there's like these young guys that, I mean, her bar class is talked about in the Twin Cities as like the thing to do on Saturday morning. So it's oftentimes a waiting list almost every weekend. So you're going to have to sign up early. But if you can do it, go see Liz because you're in for a treat.
How Liz went to the gym in New York to find a guy. You got to come to Liz's bar class to find a guy for the ladies listening.
It's true. Those girls are like, where are those? I mean, yeah. And then somebody was texting me like, hey, I heard that the Timberwolves were in your bar class. I was like, no, they just look like Timberwolves players.
Those boys are going to be, if they are listening, listening, they're going to be like, oh, what?
We won't name
I
names,
know.
but they know who they are.
They know who
So
they
funny.
are.
Yeah.
No, they're a
Yes.
blast. They're a blast, and they definitely.
Well, you are a blast
give
and
the
you
vibe.
kick ass and you get your
Thank
ass
you.
kicked when you go to your class. So Liz also teaches an incredible dance class. She's very into strength training, teaches strength training classes. So you're pretty amazing, Liz. You're very inspiring in everything you do.
Oh, thank you so
and
much.
21 years old. Don't let me day over 21.
21.
Yeah. So, Liz,
Yeah.
if someone's not in the Twin Cities or they can't get into your classes, how else can someone get in contact with you if they want to ask more or just hear about your story a little bit more? What would you recommend as far as connecting?
Yeah, you can just message me on Instagram. I'm at Liz Sousek, I believe.
Well, we will.
God, I
We'll
should
tag
know.
you.
Put it in the notes.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the notes.
I'm so good at social media, you
I
guys.
also, you guys, I also want to just put a little plug in because Liz also, I feel so fortunate. She teaches dance at my tumbling studio or at Fierce. And so if there are moms listening or dads listening and they've got kids who you are interested in having your daughter or son train with Liz, she's incredible. My daughter has trained with her. And so you can also reach out to her, reach out to me, and I can get you in contact because
Yes.
it's pretty special having someone with the experience and knowledge that you have, Liz, teaching our littles.
Yeah, no, it's really, that's like where my passion is, because what I do at Lifetime is night and day different than a traditional dance class. And it's just really fun to work with these little mostly ladies, and just see, and inspire them. And dance is something, I encourage everybody, just dance is something that should just be fun, right? And I always tell like the parents too, it's like the second your kid stops having fun, then move on, do something else. But it does, as long as they do it, they learn discipline, and they learn
Perseverance,
responsibility, perseverance,
body control.
Absolutely. So it is really fun to kind of step back into that world of like, I remember when I was here, and inspire those young dancers.
Oh, well, thank you, Liz. That was a beautiful note to end on. I am so happy I got to know you better. Like, I've known you from afar and only heard great things. So I'm happy I got to know you a little more. I might have to try to get in a bar class, on the wait list. But we will tag Liz's Instagram. So if you guys have any questions for her, want to reach out, we'll have that in the show notes. And then you can find us at 2dumbbellblondes.com or on Instagram at 2dumbbellblondes. Katie, do you have anything else before we wrap here?
I don't. You said it all. So thank you so much, Liz. And listeners, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye, guys.